Beijing, on request from Chinese POWs captured in Ukraine to be swapped. Their actions will be assessed. Trump advisors push for tougher stance on Russia, but he is siding with special envoy Witkoff. And can Russia sustain war in Ukraine? RSW outlines key challenges. The latest news next. The Chinese government has denied any involvement in the participation of Chinese citizens in Russia's war against Ukraine and says it will assess the actions of those captured in the Donetsk region under Chinese law after verifying the circumstances. Reported by Lin Jian, spokesperson for the Chinese Ministry of Foreign Affairs, in response to a request from a Ukraine-Forum correspondent in China who sought a comment on the appeal by Chinese POWs to be brought back home.
The Chinese government's position is very clear. We've issued numerous warnings and asked Chinese citizens to stay away from armed conflict zones, avoid participating in armed conflicts in any form, and avoid participating in military operations by any side. The conduct of Chinese citizens abroad will be reviewed in accordance with current law, and necessary consular and other measures will be taken.
Jian said Chinese authorities are still verifying information about the nationals captured in Ukraine and clarifying the circumstances of their involvement. He added that China stands on the so-called Ukrainian crisis. China's term for Russia's war of aggression against Ukraine remains unchanged, claiming Beijing seeks to promote peace talks to end the conflict.
We call on all relevant parties to accurately understand China's objective and impartial position and to refrain from political manipulation or using this issue of captured Chinese citizens, Idan, for publicity or self-promotion.
Despite possible plans by Russian dictator Vladimir Putin on the front in Ukraine, Moscow's ability to continue the war even at its current pace after 2025 will be highly questionable, according to an RBC Ukraine article. As Russia analyst at ISW Christian Harvard noted, Russian forces are currently mostly focused on advancing in the Donetsk region. This is because the Russian leadership seeks to occupy the entire territory of the Luhansk and Donetsk regions.
Russian forces would likely continue these efforts, especially to take the rest of the Donetsk region in the future, but will struggle to seize Ukraine's fortress belt of heavily fortified cities along the Sloviansk-Kramatorsk-Kostiantynivka line.
However, according to the RSW analyst, capturing this agglomeration will be a huge challenge for Moscow, as it will require a great deal of manpower and weaponry. Despite Putin's plans on the front line, the Russians' ability to sustain the war at its current pace beyond 2025 is highly questionable. Right now, Russia is conducting intensive infantry assaults that result in heavy personal losses. Against this backdrop, Moscow is being forced to offer increasingly large financial incentives to its citizens to recruit enough people into the army to replenish these losses.
Russia's ability to continue these crypto mobilization efforts in the medium term is unlikely, as the Russian economy and Kremlin coffers will struggle to continue with these high expenditures. Putin may be faced with a tough decision about conducting another highly unpopular partial involuntary reserve call-up, like the one we saw in September 2022.
Another problem Russia will face in the next 12 to 18 months is the depletion of its equipment stockpiles. The Russian defense industrial base cannot produce new vehicles or artillery systems fast enough to replace current battlefield losses. The Kremlin relies heavily on its stockpiles of Soviet-era equipment, but this is a limited resource which is forecasted to run out by the end of 2025 or in 2026, RSW adds.
Russia could lean on some of its allies and partners in the future to make up for any shortages, but there are likely limitations in these partnerships. North Korea may be willing to supply more troops, materiel, or equipment to Russia in the future, but Iran's ability to supply Russia with armored vehicles, artillery systems, or ammunition is likely inhibited by Iran's own limited defense industrial capacity, and China appears so far to be unwilling to support Russia directly.
Several advisors to US President Donald Trump are urging him to treat Moscow's statements about its desire for peace with Ukraine cautiously, emphasizing that Kremlin terrorist Vladimir Putin has yet to demonstrate a genuine intention to end the fighting. The Wall Street Journal citing informed sources as reported by European Pravda. About details. The sources say that the group includes Secretary of State Marco Rubio and Special Envoy for Ukraine Kit Kellogg. It was reported that the group is advising a more cautious approach to negotiations with Putin and a tougher stance regarding Moscow's demands for territorial concessions from Kiev. However, Trump is currently leaning more towards the opinion of another US Special Representative, Steve Witkoff, who believes Putin seeks peace, following 2 meetings with him in Moscow, according to officials. The Wall Street Journal wrote that even those Trump advisors advocating for a tougher approach towards Moscow support his intention to stop the war. However, Russia's missile strike on Sunday, the 13th of April, which killed 35 people, in the city of Sumy has only deepened divisions within Trump's team. The sources claim that during the White House discussion on whether the US should tighten sanctions against Russia to force it to negotiate, Rubio and Kellogg advised Trump to be wary of Putin's diplomatic intentions. It is worth noting that in recent weeks, Witkoff has made high-profile statements regarding occupied territories in Ukraine, calling them the largest issue in resolving the Russo-Ukrainian war. In an interview with Tucker Carlson, Witkoff said that the largest issue in that conflict are these so-called 4 regions. In his view, this includes Donbass, Crimea, Luhansk, and 2 others. Following such statements, Reuters reported that some of the actions and comments made by Witkoff regarding a settlement of Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine have drawn criticism within the White House and among Republicans. Kaja Kallas, High Representative of the European Union for Foreign Affairs and Security Policy, has called on European leaders on the 14th of April not to take part in military celebrations in Moscow on the 9th of May, instead urging them to show solidarity with Ukraine, reported by Politico, citing Kallas' statement to journalists in Luxembourg after a foreign ministers' meeting.
What was also discussed very clearly and said by different member states of the EU is that any participation in the 9th May parades or celebrations in Moscow will not be taken lightly on the European side, considering that Russia is really waging a full-scale war in Europe.
Kallas stated that Europe does not want any potential European member state to join in the 9th of May celebrations in Moscow. Politico, citing a Russian media outlet, stated that Russian dictator Vladimir Putin had invited the leaders of China, India, Brazil, Slovakia, and Serbia to the celebrations. In turn, Kallas urged all European member states to visit Kiev as often as possible to show solidarity and support for Ukraine. That's all for today. Thanks for watching this video. Like and subscribe.